This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on importance of Swami Vivekananda's teaching in today's world. The participants are Professor Vivek Kumar, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Prashant Sood, Senior Journalist.
Swami Vivekananda is an icon of the country whose work to channelize energies of the people, particularly the youth, for constructive work continues to be an inspiration for the country. His birth anniversary today is observed as National Youth Day. Hailed as thinker of thinkers, his teachings continue to be of immense relevance to a world ridden by conflict and tensions. How do you look at the Vivekananda's teachings as perceived today by people, particularly youth, for whom his message was most relevant, most direct, most effective?
Vivekananda as a multifaceted personality who began from a very humble background, and then in a very, very small period of his life, say 29 years, that he achieved such a towering status that he was hailed not only by Indian society but the whole world. So we can begin by his social work, the message which he gave that look, this life is not meant for consumption of one's own personality, but it can give to the society at large. He believed in meditation, he believed in yoga, he believed in the subjectivity of the others, and in that sense, he always held his guru in a very high esteem. So, without guru, you cannot travel. That is one message which comes out of his personality. Then second, believe in your own culture. Believe in your own value system. That was his attire, that was his belief in religion, the Vedanta philosophy. All that clubbed together gives a very, very fascinating and absorbing personality, which can be an exemplary personality to be followed today by the youth. Today's youth lacks an icon. There are less personalities at the national level which can be of those qualities which Vivekananda possessed. In that sense, I think he becomes so relevant today when there is bigotry, when there is so much of fanaticism, when there is no respect for religion, when the value system is deteriorating. He becomes a role model to be followed by youth, because India is turning younger and younger, and 65% of the population falls in youth category, and that is basically going by the age.
He spoke about these in his address at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893. And he specifically spoke of bigotry and its horrible descendant, which he called fanaticism. And he said that these have long possessed this beautiful earth. They have filled the earth with violence, drenched it often and often with human blood, destroyed civilization, and sent whole nations to despair. And he said that had it not been for these horrible demons, human society would be far more advanced than it is now. So, these things that continue to affect us today, he raised that time. And in his work that followed, all these years that he did, he tried to, in his own way, get rid of these tendencies among people, both in India and outside.
You see that in the scenario when he was speaking, that scenario world over was really infested by religious fanaticism, because people, after French Revolution or say after Scientific Revolution, the world was heading towards a very different way. The Industrial Revolution had taken its own toll. And because of that, people thought that Scientific Revolution, Industrial Revolution will bring happiness. But there was more exploitation of the people. The religion where actually solace were supposed to be held, it was Protestant ethics was giving rise of capitalism. So that way exploitation on the basis of religion had increased world over, and India was not an exception. There was also exploitation within Indian society, and that's why he was talking about that you have to think of the secular aspect of the religion. All the religions of the world teach brotherhood. They will have good virtues about the humanity. But what is happening here is that in the name of religion, there are certain groups who are subjugating the others. And in the name of religion, people want to suppress other minority groups. And in that sense, we see so much example of European society, American society, in the name of religion, how people were exploited. One king, one general changed the religion, the whole subjects changed. At that level, I think he was very, very far-sighted, where he was looking the germs of exploitation, subjugation and suppression in religion. And therefore, he wanted to exorcise those elements which were subjugating. And therefore, I think he stands so extraordinary outside the crowd of leaders which were there at that time.
He was born in 1863. The Great Uprising was not what's still being discussed among. He felt that, patriotism has to be combined with social service. His work was at that time, when India was under the British rule, and there were several kinds of social problems. And also at that time, a few years after he was born, the Indian National Congress was formed in 1885. And he could have joined it, but he had his own mind. So he thought that without necessary preparation, what is the use of just shouting in a party? So he wanted to be a self-evolved man, and that was his journey of self-evolution that continued. And that is how he tried, whatever task you do in your life, it has to be combined with social service for fellow human beings.
That is very important point you are raising, because politics was trying to consume so many other leaders. Here is a person who stood by social movement, because along with that Theosophical Society was also there, and then Ramakrishna Mission had to be taken forward. He was envisaging that it is through only making an organization that you can take the social work ahead. So in that context, I feel that he was an institution builder as well. Without institutions of that kind, people may not sustain the social work which was required in those periods. And a very important message which he gives to masses, that believe in your own self. And that's what he actually asked you to play football and defeat British in their own game. So this was, I think, something very, very extraordinary, which people did not see that, look, you cannot actually imitate the Englishmen. But he said that, no, you can also go that way, but you have to defeat them in their own game. Don't leave your Indianity. So there was good mix and confluence of modernity and tradition, I would say.
He wanted India to imbibe the best qualities that the West had, and without, leaving its own roots. And he believed that strength of India is its spirituality, and a lot of things will happen, if India rediscovers its spirituality. Every person rediscovers it. The things that he wanted the Indians to learn from West was that absence of jealousy. That was one thing that he kind of suggested. Other was perseverance that the people in the West had about their goals, and also more confidence. So those are the things that he wanted Indians to imbibe, but at the same time, he wanted India to be India.
Somewhere down the line, I think, was having a historicity in his mind because of so much of onslaught from outside, because of, Europeans, Shah, Hun, Kushan, Scythian, Parthian, Dutch, Danes, Mughal, Pathan, all coming, and I think that shattered Indian confidence. So he wanted that first and the foremost step should be that Indians should feel more confidence, and that's why he said that back to the Vedas, because Vedas are infallible, and he believed in Vedas in such a manner that, look, if a Smriti is to be there, Smriti is only one epoch, Smriti will be fine, but other, you have to fall on Vedas along. So in that sense, I think he was trying to make this emphatic point that you have to believe in your own culture, in your own society, and your own sayings of the great men which we have followed over the years.
He said, he was greatly impressed by the discipline that the people had in Japan. And he said that every Indian should at least once in his life have an opportunity to see how the people work their discipline. He was asked whether, he would like India to be like Japan. He said, no, India should be India.
Yeah.
Because religion is its strength, and, each nation has its own music. Indian music has to be Indian. So he believed that India should remain what it is, at the same time addressing its social problems.
One thing I would like to add, the diversity of youths which we have today in contemporary society, because Indian society itself has become so diverse. There are 4 types of youths which we can envisage. There is a rural youth which doesn't have still the information, which doesn't have the basic qualifications. But there is an urban youth which is first generation learners, and they have little bit of information. There is a third type of youth which is growing with all sorts of information revolution, computers. Fourth type of youth is specifically just born and they are looking towards West. every time and they are waiting for a flight to go to the West. So for them, I think it is more important that when you go abroad, you have to come back also to serve your country. So this is great message of his personality that look, there is science, there is knowledge in the West, but the spirituality is in India. And if these two can meet together, no personality can beat that type of personality. So you have to go abroad, you have to go to the West to bring knowledge, but you have to come to India to serve.
And he also laid a lot of emphasis on secular education, which was lacking in people at that time. And he also said that, the youth should be willing to do some self-sacrifice. And the ability of country to rise above its ills would be depending on the kind of self-sacrifice that youth are willing to make. In his time, he said, if there are enough youth, the task can be accomplished tomorrow. It may take years, depending on the kind of energy that youth put in social service. So that was another message he gave.
Definitely. That was, I think, very, very different from the political and extremist movement which was there during his period. And he did not join, as you yourself said, in any of the group, but kept on taking the social work and social service mission ahead. And in that way, I think his personality stands out very, very different from other stalwarts, those who were there. But he stands head and shoulder above than those personalities.
And his words were also very inspiring. This quotation that he had, rise, awake, and stop not till your goal is reached, is, kind of inspiration that he'll continue to inspire generations and generations.
And very important that he put his lot of emphasis on uplifting the lowest strata of the society. That was also that he wanted to dismantle the caste system.
He wanted that everybody should have that kind of education that he or she raises.
He had pinned his hope that India can rise if the lowest strata are given more education. If upper strata needs one teacher, the lowest strata needs hundreds. And so in that sense, I think education was his main forte, that by education you can definitely uplift the lowest strata. And therefore he quotes that when was education given to Indian women? So he was also for the rights of education to women as well. So education on the lowest strata, education to the women, and definitely spirituality for all the nation.
And despite the people at that time being poor, he had tremendous faith on them. He said that poverty was not a crime. And he compared it to his visits abroad when he was mobbed by people just because of the kind of clothes he was wearing. And he said that, this kind of thing doesn't happen in India because people in India are more receptive. They're more open. They don't mob somebody just because of the kind of clothes that he or she is wearing. He even said that they are much more civilized than the Europeans were. So that way, he had tremendous faith in their ability, just that what it required was kind of good nurturing.
He said that India has to teach a lot to the West because civilization in India is much, much older. It has much to offer to the West. A peaceful life, our agriculture, our village, there is still much more civilized.
He founded Ramakrishna Mission. People there were undertaking practical Vedanta and social service, and activities included running hospitals, schools, colleges, hostels, and also conducting relief and rehabilitation work for victims of, calamities at that time could be like earthquakes, cyclones. And, so basically his thrust, raising your inner self, uplifting yourself internally, and also helping the fellow beings in whichever way you could.
Selfless social service through institution, and that to different types of institutions. It may be medical institutions, it may be education institutions, it may be some other help institutions. We are now in the age of voluntary association. And look, here is a person who is talking about voluntary association in those eras when there was nothing to fall upon. So there is, of course, that institution builder, a institution which can help to the masses. And of course, that was the need of the hour, and much has not changed as far as rural India is concerned, tribal India is concerned, and India lives in different ages whatsoever. Today, India is shining as well. So we have on one hand computer age, on the other hand we have middle classes. Situation is complex, but answer is one. Believe in ingenuity, make an institution, and serve.